Hello and welcome back to Gwalia Gainline, the fan pod following the iconic Welsh team Gwalia Lightning in the Celtic Challenge. And we think this is the only fan pod in the Celtic Challenge that we know of too. So this week it's just Sarah, no Sian, but what I'm going to do is take you through the final round of the regular season and take a look at the all-important Welsh derby between Brython and Gwalia, and then take a little look at what's coming up in the next stages. So both these teams came into the game already qualified for the knockout stages. We knew that because of the scores earlier in the weekend, and Gwalia and Brython's match was last on the Sunday. So on paper, it wasn't really about survival, but as with all Welsh derbies, these things still really matter. And apart from local pride and maintaining momentum and looking good for individuals in the run-up to the Women's Six Nations, there was, of course, the mathematical possibility that if everything went completely right, maximum bonus points for Brython, then they would leapfrog Gwalia in the standings. Well, that didn't happen, but as you're probably aware, Brython did take the win. So let's take a little look at what happened there. So arguably, perhaps conditions favoured Brython slightly. It was home advantage. I think lots of Brython fans there. The pitch is a real grass pitch at Parc y Scarlets, or Parc Cutlets, as we like to call it on this pod, which was the first time that Gwalia had played on such a pitch, so conditions might have helped Brython in that score as well. And it was everything you might expect from Welsh derby on International Women's Day. Lots of families involved. That was great to see, and it was definitely a tight, physical, and incredibly tense game. With the eventual score, Brython winning 7-0, the score of the game is a little bit more interesting than the scoreline might suggest. So this match really was all about momentum and positioning. Gwalia was arguably preferring third place as the potential route through Clovers, having had two fairly close matches with Clovers previously, whereas Wolfhounds had been further away from them. But of course, Brython had already taken a win against Clovers, so maybe that matchup looks quite interesting from that perspective too. So let's start with the first half, because this is really where Brython kind of set the tone of the game, really. They started hard right from the opening minutes, and they were looking comfortable, controlling territory and possession. They probably, if we're really honest, win the kicking game, I think, in the first half. And it was quite hard for Gwalia to put any phases of possession together. I think probably made fewer errors than Gwalia. And Gwalia defended absolutely valiantly, but around the 15-minute mark, Brython's Branwen Metcalf powered over for the only try of the game, which was converted by Hannah Marshall. It was pressure at hold, really, I think you might say. An interesting part of the half probably came towards the second half of that, where late into the first half, Gwalia lost Abby Fleming to the sin bin. I'm watching this thinking, oh my goodness, this is going to be quite tough. This is a critical page. We've really got to keep Brython out. And so they did, to be fair to Gwalia. A couple of near misses. It was quite tense for we Gwalia fans, but they did manage to hold out Brython going into half time. Perhaps Brython should have been further ahead at that point. And we don't have the territory and possession statistics for the game, sadly, but I suspect if you could see the first half statistics, they'd be very, very strongly in Brython's favour. But all credit, really, that Gwalia's defence had held. And that's all important, really, within derby matches. You've got to keep close touch with the score. And as fans of this pod will know that Gwalia don't always start the fastest. They tend to have better second halves than first halves. And I was watching it wondering whether that script really was going to be important in this match too. So the second half was a much better story, I think you might say, for Gwalia fans. Gwalia came out with a lot of intent right from the off of the second half. Personally, I thought it made a difference that Bryony King, their captain, was on for the second half, and she, as ever, led from the front. The breakdown work improved, and Gwalia started to win more territory and possession. And I think Gwalia really helping stabilise things. Then all of a sudden, it was Gwalia very much pounding Brython, really, and just looking to score. And it was Brython who were defending and defending and defending. I saw someone say, "Oh, this match has become a real arm wrestle," and that's probably quite a good way of describing it. It was very intense and really, I guess, dominated by defence. In fact, I think the whole game was actually really probably dominated by defence, and that meant it was quite hard for attacking opportunities. Kath Richards for Gwalia was really great in the counter-attack, but it's really hard to put things together and convert pressure into chances. And so the drama continued really until the dramatic moment right in the game at the 79th minute, or might even have been on the 80th minute. Allow Pearce crossed the line only for it to be a knock-on at the death. So yeah, really quite a dramatic ending. And we had hopes at that point because Brython was suddenly down to 13 players right at the end of the match after 2 yellow cards. So it was certainly quite tight. But you have to give credit to Brython for absolutely valiant defence there. And Brython's defence held. Maybe the romantic Gwalia fans might think a draw would have been a fair score, and there is an argument it is. But at the end of the day, you have to give it all credit to Brython. They will feel they were justified winners in just the quality of the defence, really. I saw a statistic online saying that Brython have conceded very few points in their last 5 or so games. I think something like 6 or 7 points a game, which is really impressive in the Celtic Challenge or in any rugby tournament, really. That's really strong defence. So they've really built on their performance, whereas it's been a lot harder for Gwalia. One thing that probably hasn't been said much, which I think might be worth thinking about in comparing Gwalia this year to last year, is the effect that injuries have had on this season. And I think Gwalia has always been a very forward-orientated team and built very much on the back of its forward strength. Was very lucky last year and had a lot of consistency, few injuries. Was able to put out a really core foundational pack that saw it through. And I think this year we've been a bit more unlucky with quite a lot of injuries impacting on the team, and that's not much mentioned in anything, and taking nothing away from Brython, but perhaps the relative impact of injuries this year might be something that's taken an impact on Gwalia. So key player performances. Well, you have to hand it to player of the match, Branwen Metcalf for Brython, really. She was really everywhere and justifiably player of the match. Georgia Iono for me as well was absolutely everywhere and a complete menace to Gwalia. So hats off to them. Both of them are in the Welsh squad, so really excited for them as a Wales fan too. And Hannah Marshall did have a really strong game with her general game management and kicking options as well. You have to credit to her. For me, as ever, it's a tale of some of the names we've talked about before. Kath Richards was deemed Sarah in the Game, star of the game for Gwalia, and justifiably so. As I said, she was really working hard. I think she was joint captain of the day with Molly Reardon, and she really was making sure she led by example, I think. So my abiding memory of her is really her really grittily counter-attacking and making the defence and doing absolutely everything that she could, really. So really strong performance from her. And as I already said, I thought Bryony King made a huge impact when she came on. I think she took leadership duties in the second half, if memory serves, because she was talking to the ref. And she's someone who's Gwalia really miss when she's not available. In the rare occasion she's not available, and I think made a difference to the Gwalia turnaround in the second half. And as ever, I have to give credit to Allow Pearce, who's our strongest carrier, and incredibly difficult. And as ever, exciting to watch. She was incredibly heavily marked in this game, so being double tackled quite regularly. Of course, everyone in Wales will know already about Allow and the dangers she poses to oppositions. But even so, I thought she made a huge impact. I guess it just made it a tiny bit predictable at times for Gwalia because she is our main ball carrier. So whereas before we've had more options before our injuries, so maybe that was kind of part of it too. And all these performances really matter at this moment because it's only a month now until the Women's Six Nations. So I'm told that there were 14 Welsh internationals in the game on both sides, and there will be lots of people who are, jockeying for position and really keen to make sure that they're in Sean Lynn, the Welsh coach's eye. So where does this leave the competition now? The semi-finals are set. We know Gwalia Lightning will face Clovers away on the 21st, Saturday the 21st, and Brython Thunder will take on Wolfhounds also on that day. So arguably, I think you might say that's probably the right way round, in that Gwalia, well, both Gwalia and Brython have run Clovers very close this year. And Brython have had that outstanding win over Wolfhounds in tough conditions at Parker Scarlets earlier the year. So it definitely makes the semi-finals very intriguing. From Gwalia's perspective, Clovers are going to be tough to break down, and it's really going to be important that we have our best available team for the match, and we don't have any injuries, and some players like Lily Terry are able to come back for us. So keep everything crossed for the strongest possible team. But I'm sure that they would prefer that matchup to Wolfhounds, who are, I think, no surprise when I say the outstanding performing team of the Celtic Challenge. So despite the derby loss, it's absolutely still game on. Now, one of the things we like to do in this pod is do a little hot take. I would ask Charlotte for her hot takes. I'm not quite sure what a hot take of the week is, but I'll give you a couple from me. The first one is it possible that a Welsh team might reach the Celtic Challenge final this year? My hot take is yeah, it's possible. I don't think it's probable, but I do think there's a realistic chance of that. Well, anyway, a girl can dream, shall we say. It would be absolutely amazing for the Welsh game if they could achieve that. I think the popularity and success is absolutely going to come, and if we could achieve something that's a breakthrough, it would be absolutely fantastic for Wales going into the Six Nations and just building the fanship and the viewership of the game. And we're clear that the Celtic Challenge is going to grow and develop, and there'll be more investment in it next year from, dare I say, all the nations. So we're really keen to see that we have that little crumb of comfort to hang on to, really, in terms of hope. It'd be fantastic if one of the Welsh teams could reach the final. I don't think it's impossible, so I'm keeping everything crossed. My other hot take then is that you might be aware, guys, that both Brython and Gwalia have their own Instagram player-led accounts. They're sort of doing their own social medias, and they're both fantastic. My hot take is Gwalia has been knocking out of the park really this year. I really enjoyed the content, and I think it's been really encouraging. It's a shame that they're not able to be supported by existing organisations such as the WRU, but maybe in a way that's a good thing, because it allows them to be freer and more playful and give a nicer, more realistic and more sort of open approach to things, as opposed to being stuck within an organisational social media profile. So I've really enjoyed that. I look forward to more of that, and keep knocking it out of the park, guys. So just to wrap up, that is our brief review of the Welsh Derby. Brython taking the bragging rights with a 7-0 win, but a lot of grit and Gwalia power and tenacity shown, particularly in the second half. So Gwalia do have some work-ons to build on. There'll be definitely a lot of work-ons from the first half, but also encouraging that they were able to improve their performance in the second. So we've got to make sure we come out of the blocks like we did in the second half, really, and just make sure we're more clinical. There's Clovers waiting for us, but I don't think we should fear them unduly. And there's all still to play for when it comes up to the Six Nations. I'm really hoping that all the Welsh players do really well in the final rounds of the Celtic Challenge, and we have lots of cool things to cheer about. So thanks so much for listening to the Gwalia Game Line and being patient with me, because it's only Sarah this week. I've got no one to say funny jokes with, but I've done my best. We'll be back soon just to give an update on the semi-finals. So we shall see you all then. Take care now. See you all. Bye.